For decades, the right of women to have an abortion in the U.S. was protected at the highest level. Alexandra Byers explains.
It started in 1973 with the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court ruling. That said, the U.S. Constitution's guarantee of liberty also creates a right to privacy, and with that, a woman's right to an abortion. And that decision stood for nearly 50 years. But in 2022, a conservative-dominated Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, voting 6-3 in favor of overturning the nationwide protection of abortion rights. That ruling put the issue in the hands of state governments. Since then, 16 U.S. states, marked here in red, have passed laws making abortion illegal in nearly all circumstances. And that number could grow, with cases before the courts in Nebraska, Iowa, and Utah. Arizona's Supreme Court has just ruled a 160-year-old law banning abortions is enforceable, making abortion punishable by up to 5 years in prison, except when the mother's life is at risk.
This near-total ban, dating back to the Civil War, passed decades before women even had the right to vote, should never have been resurrected. This ripple effect that we are all experiencing from the U.S. Supreme Court's detrimental decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and undo fundamental protections for reproductive care is terrifying and infuriating.
Because of cases like these, the issue of abortion rights is once again at the top of the presidential campaign ahead of November's vote.
Just really outrage, disappointment, fear for the women in our state, as well as this ruling kind of sprinkling over the rest of the nation. If we can do it here, other states will think they can do it there as well.
I recently heard about it, and I am a Catholic, so I feel that it's a God-sent rule.
56% of American women say they're less likely to vote for an anti-abortion rights candidate. And this issue is likely to dominate the political agenda in the weeks and months ahead.
Well, to discuss the political implications of this ruling in Arizona, we're now joined by Naomi Cahn, who's a professor of law at the University of Virginia, joining us live from Washington. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. Interestingly, as we heard in Rob's report there, several GOP officials, including Carrie Lake, who's running to represent Arizona in the Senate, have denounced this latest ruling, when in fact many of them cheered when Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022. Why has the political calculus changed?
The political calculus has changed because it turns out that abortion is quite important to a number of voters. So for decades, it was Americans who were against abortion who were more likely to describe themselves as voting solely based on abortion. That's flipped, and it turns out that abortion is protecting abortion access is important to American voters.
Right. Even Donald Trump has said that Arizona's near-total ban had gone too far. How much of a political nightmare do you think this is going to be for the Republicans in this election year?
I think all of this attention to the issue, the immediate responses from Republicans running for federal office, running for national office, shows that this is an incredibly important issue. When Donald Trump is, of course, the president who appointed the Supreme Court justices who voted in favor of overturning a national access to abortion. And he and other Republicans have been cheering that states should be responsible for deciding what happens to abortion in their states. And now we see in Arizona and in a number of states just what happens when states are responsible for making this decision.
What impact do you think this is going to have on the presidential race?
In 2020, President Biden won Arizona by under 11,000 votes. So it was an extremely narrow margin of victory for the Democrats. If more voters turn out, and if they decide to vote for Democrats, that would be very important to a margin of victory for President Biden.
Yeah, you say this is an important issue still for many American voters, Naomi, and a number of states, as you alluded to, have tried to roll back abortion rights since 2022, since Roe v. Wade was overturned. What have been the real-world consequences of these anti-abortion policies?
The real world consequences have been that in many states where thousands of abortions were performed prior to the overturning of Roe, the actual number of abortions is trending down towards zero. So although nationally the number of abortions has remained about the same or perhaps increased, in states with abortion bans, the real world impacts has been an incredible decrease in the number of abortions, a lot of interstate travel, and cases brought by women denied abortions who describe the incredible trauma of having to carry pregnancies with fetuses that were doomed. So there have been incredible real world consequences, not just in terms of access to abortion in those states, but also for women in those states who have been denied access to abortion, even when they themselves have had their health endangered through continuation of the pregnancies. There's also been political implications. When abortion has been on the ballot in virtually all states, abortion access has won. And so abortion access has been a winning political issue as well.
Thank you so much for talking to us about this. Very interesting to hear your thoughts. Naomi Cahn, Professor of Law at the University of Virginia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.